You were standing alone in the garage. You asked yourself a question out loud, then you answered it. You did not even notice you had done it until you were already back at work. You do this more than you think you do. In the truck with the radio off, in the kitchen at 11 at night with the fridge door open, running through the day out loud like you are giving someone a report. You mutter when you are fixing something. Not random noise. You are walking yourself through the steps like there is a second man standing there, checking your work. You catch a mistake before it becomes a problem because you hear yourself say it out loud. First, before your hands even stop moving. You have had entire conversations in the shower, arguments you already won, things you needed to say once, just to yourself, before you could actually let them go. You narrate the drive home some nights, not for anyone else, because your own voice is the one voice you actually trust to keep you honest, even when nobody's checking. You have said your own name out loud when something got heavy, not because you lost your grip on it, because some part of you needed to hear it from someone steady, and that someone was you. You have talked yourself through a decision at 2 in the morning, out loud, in an empty kitchen, and come out the other side clearer than you went in. You have never once thought of this as strange while you were doing it. You just never said any of it out loud to another person, which is its own kind of joke. You have talked yourself out of quitting on something halfway through, out loud, in an empty room, before anyone else even knew you were close to walking away. You have stood at a workbench, gone quiet for a second, then heard your own voice pick the thought back up exactly where you left it, like it never actually stopped running in the background. You have caught yourself standing in a quiet house, working through something out loud that no one asked about and no one will ever hear. And some part of you has wondered quietly if that makes you a little off. You have sat at a red light long after it turned green, finishing a conversation in your head out loud, and only snapped back when the car behind you tapped the horn. You have rehearsed what you were about to say to someone, out loud, alone in the truck, word for word, before you ever said it to their face. You have stood at the mailbox, reading something twice, out loud under your breath, just to make sure it actually said what you thought it said. You have caught yourself finishing a thought from earlier in the day, mid-sentence, hours later, like the conversation with yourself never actually stopped. You have talked yourself through loading the truck for a trip, item by item, out loud, so nothing gets left behind on the porch. You have caught your own reflection in a window mid-sentence and kept talking anyway, because stopping never once crossed your mind. You have muttered your way through a decision nobody else needed to weigh in on, out loud, in an empty room, until it stopped sounding like a question. You have stood in the garage at night going over a number in your head, out loud, until it finally added up the way it was supposed to. It does not. Here is what people get wrong about this. They hear a man talking to himself and their mind jumps straight to something being off. Stress, age catching up, too much time alone in the house. What they do not understand is that this was never a man losing his grip. This is a man running his own systems check, out loud, because that is how his mind has always done its best work. It was never about being unraveled. It was always about staying sharp, and it has been that way for longer than anyone else noticed. You narrate your own thinking before you commit to it. You will be halfway through a job and hear yourself say, "Wait, that is not going to hold," before you have even set the tool down. That split second where you catch yourself is not confusion. It is a mind checking its own work in real time, instead of finding out later that it was wrong, when it would have cost more to fix. Most men do not think in that much detail. You do it without trying every single day, and you have never once called it a skill. You talk a problem into pieces you can actually use. Something breaks. The engine will not turn over, the numbers will not add up, and instead of standing there, staring at it, you start talking it through out loud, saying it forces you to slow down long enough to turn a mess into a straight line you can follow. A plan that sounds wrong out loud gets caught before it ever costs you anything. That is not a habit. That is quality control running in the background, while everyone else is still guessing at the answer. You use your own name when things get heavy, and you do it on purpose. Right before something hard, you will say your own name, or tell yourself you instead of I. It puts a small amount of space between you and the feeling, just enough room to think instead of react. That is not you being cold about it. That is you coaching yourself through it, the same way you would talk a friend down if he called you in a panic and needed to hear a steady voice on the other end. You mutter while you're building something with your hands. Somewhere in the middle of the project, you are narrating out loud, arguing with your own first idea, trying a different angle mid-sentence. That back and forth is not you losing focus. It is how your mind tests a few different versions of a thing before it commits to the one that will actually work, the same way you would rather waste a minute talking it out than an afternoon fixing it twice. You say it out loud to find it. Keys, wallet, the bolt you just set down 2 seconds ago. You name it under your breath, and somehow it shows up faster than it would have otherwise. Your own voice sharpens what your eyes are already looking for and cuts out everything in the room that does not matter in that moment. It is a small thing, but it is not nothing. It means your attention answers to you, not the other way around. You have said a part number or a measurement out loud twice in a row for no real reason, just to lock it in place before you moved on to the next thing. You are not repeating yourself because you forgot it. You are making sure it stayed put. You do not need someone else to sign off on your own thinking before you trust it. You will talk something through with yourself, out loud, long before you ever bring it to another person. By the time you say it to someone else, you have already stress tested it and found the holes yourself. That is not you being closed off. You just do not need a crowd around you to tell you what you already worked out on your own time, in your own garage, in your own head. You replay the day when the house finally goes quiet. Driving home, standing in the garage, lying there before you fall asleep. You go back over what you said, what you should have said instead, what you will do differently tomorrow. That is not you being hard on yourself for no reason. That is you keeping score on your own terms, out loud, so the lesson actually sticks, instead of disappearing by morning like it never happened at all. You have carried this since long before anyone put a name to it. Before midlife, before the quiet house, before half the rooms you used to talk in had other people standing in them. It was never new, it just got louder once the house did. You are not a man who talks to himself because something is wrong with you. You are a man who talks to himself because your mind runs too fast and carries too much to leave unattended. Saying it out loud was never a symptom of anything. It has always been how you keep your own house in order, one quiet sentence at a time, long before anyone else even noticed there was ever anything to manage. You are not scattered because you mutter through a job. You are precise, out loud, before anyone else in the room has even finished thinking about it. You will probably catch yourself doing it again tonight. Mid-sentence, alone, correcting something only you heard in the first place. You will not stop and explain it to anyone. You never have. That was never the point of it. And you will just keep going, because you already know exactly who was talking.